They came with a message. It wasn't subtle, diplomatic, or cloaked in veiled language. It was an ultimatum, transmitted in perfect English, translated and delivered by an avatar so lifelike it might have been human. The envoy's form shimmered above every global broadcast channel, tall, gilded, eyes glowing with confidence. Its voice was smooth and devoid of emotion, but its words carried the weight of an empire that had never once lost a war. Your species has been evaluated and deemed insufficient for sovereignty. You are hereby annexed into the dominion of the Galax. Resistance will be met with erasure. Compliance ensures integration. You have one planetary cycle to respond. The message ended. There was no countdown, no plea, no room for negotiation. Silence followed. Across Earth, no alarms sounded. No mass evacuations or desperate emergency sessions. World leaders convened privately but briefly. Scientists, analysts, and military strategists reviewed the data and said nothing publicly. Civilians were not instructed to prepare. Instead, life continued. Trains arrived on time. Restaurants stayed open. The stock markets dipped for 3 hours, then recovered. The Empire watched and waited for hysteria. There was none. They didn't understand. They had come across dozens of species before, docile, primitive, fractured. Most folded before the first cruiser reached orbit. The rest died screaming. Humanity, they expected, would tremble. But Earth didn't flinch. In orbit around Jupiter, a fleet of scouts watched with sensors primed. They picked up nothing unexpected. Satellites, old space junk, minimal defense arrays. A few outposts on Mars and the Moon. No massive fleets. No energy signatures of note. Still, the observers reported back, humanity was still not responding. A second message was sent. Briefer. Surrender conditions will be offered once your leaders make contact. This is your final opportunity. Again, silence. From the depths of the Empire's command network came murmurs of uncertainty. A psychological tactic, perhaps? Bravado? It didn't matter. Protocols were in place. The Sol system would be shown what happened to those who ignored the will of Galax. Within a day, the first wave deployed, 200 warships, escorted by battlecruisers, transports, and data harvesters. They entered the system at full strength, broadcasting signals that would overpower anything in the human range. They passed Pluto with ease. Neptune marked their staging point. Still, nothing from Earth. Empire generals assumed humanity had no idea what was coming. They were wrong. Deep beneath Earth's crust, far from cities and satellites, old bunkers lit up. Not in alarm, but in confirmation. The declaration had been received, catalogued, analyzed, and distributed. One signal was sent back, not toward the Empire, but inward. It rippled through subterranean fiber lines untouched by any global network. No satellites observed it. No transmissions leaked. It simply said, "Protocol observation active." The fleet reached Mars. Human installations dotted the surface, small domes, mining rigs, research labs. They were empty. Not destroyed, not evacuated, just dormant. No personnel. No artificial intelligences. No signs of distress. The Empire assumed humanity had fled. From their perspective, humans were unprepared. But if they had known what lurked beneath the surface, they might have paused. Instead, they transmitted once more. Your time is up. Back on Earth, no one responded. Not because they were afraid, but because there was no need. Humanity didn't consider the transmission a threat. They considered it a mistake. In an orbital research facility drifting just past Earth's shadow, a technician sipped coffee and reviewed logs. Next to him, a console pulsed a slow amber. It was the only interface on the station not automated. He tapped a key. A single confirmation code lit the screen. He entered it. Nothing exploded. No missiles launched. No drama. Just a single packet of information sent back down through hardened channels to Earth. It was received by precisely 7 nodes. 7 individuals acknowledged it. 7 humans? No one else needed to know. Meanwhile, the Empire finalized preparations for planetary invasion. That was their plan: occupy, install governance AI, begin genetic assimilation, deploy compliance nodes. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Earth wasn't reacting because the decision had already been made. This wasn't a matter for debate. It was a switch. And it had been flipped. While the Empire waited for screams, humans looked up at the stars and blinked. They had seen worse. They had built worse. And unlike every other species the Empire had subdued, humanity had been preparing for the wrong war for over a century. The Empire had just declared the right one. They arrived without resistance. The Empire's fleet, sleek, immense, proud, pierced through the black with formations drilled across millennia of conquest. They expected to see chaos. They expected missiles. Earth's silence was mistaken for paralysis. But as their ships drifted past Saturn, there was still no response. Mars came into view. Their sensors detected infrastructure, colonial domes, reactors, subterranean mining fields. A few drones hovered, executing routine operations. No weapons systems activated. No defenses targeted the fleet. Not a single human transmission acknowledged their presence. Caution flared among the Empire's command corps. They initiated soft scans, non-aggressive pulses meant to identify technology levels and threat potential. The results confused them. The colonies were robust, more advanced than projections. Systems were hardened, network security layered far beyond expected. Still, no personnel. Not even AI resistance. The Admiral ordered a test strike. One cruiser fired a plasma beam, vaporizing a dormant Martian relay. No counterattack followed. No threat level raised. More strikes followed: automated factories, agricultural domes, orbital tethers, all eliminated with ease. Still, Earth made no move. The fleet continued inward. Empire analysts reviewed the lack of response with unease. One observed an odd pattern in the way Earth's satellites behaved. They weren't deactivated or jammed. They moved. Synchronized. Orbit paths adjusted subtly, as if guided by something unseen. No energy surge. No transmissions. Just coordinated drift. From the moon's dark side, a low frequency burst passed silently across space. The Empire didn't notice. Their sensors weren't designed to recognize something that didn't emit power. It wasn't a signal, it was a trigger. The fleet neared Earth's orbit. 973 ships now positioned for what they called stage preparation. Weapons armed. Gravity anchors deployed. Target lock protocols initiated. They still received no message. No surrender. No plea. Not even defiance. Empire operatives speculated the humans had chosen mass suicide. Others believed Earth's militaries were too fractured to organize a response. A few suspected something else, something worse, but they were dismissed. Confidence dominated every briefing. On Earth, the global networks remained normal. News outlets reported nothing. Civilian data traffic flowed as expected. The planet remained calm. The only anomaly was silence. Empire Command ordered an atmospheric test. A single destroyer descended, dropping kinetic rods over a rural region to provoke retaliation. The rods struck. Craters formed. Fires ignited. Casualties occurred. No countermeasures. The fleet initiated full-spectrum psychological warfare. Holograms deployed in low orbit. Projections of Imperial authority filled the sky. Still, Earth responded with nothing. At that moment, a few Empire captains questioned why no orbital defense grid had been activated. Earth had the capability. Their previous conflict signatures showed rapid adaptation. The lack of reaction was beginning to feel deliberate. Data officers detected strange fluctuations beneath Earth's oceans. Massive heat plumes, but no volcanic activity. Deep oceanic scans returned garbled results. Something, large, shielded, unreadable, was active. Seismic readings from Antarctica and beneath the Tibetan Plateau echoed similar anomalies. Energy signatures remained frustratingly low. The Empire launched probes. They were neutralized instantly, not destroyed, just missing. Their signals vanished mid-transmission. No wreckage. No trace. The disappearance pattern was identical each time, down to the millisecond. Fleet Command interpreted it as a sensor malfunction. They resumed positioning for the primary strike. They broadcast their final declaration. Planet Earth, your silence is futile. This is the last hour of your independence. Prepare for assimilation. The signal looped for 10 minutes. No reply. Then, quietly, Earth's satellites went dark, not with an EMP or system crash. They shifted into encrypted blackout. Global satellite telemetry ceased. Civilian networks transitioned to local mesh protocols. Military bands dropped into frequency obfuscation. The Empire was blind. For the first time, unease turned into dread. One scout ship attempted to ping Earth's orbital stations directly. Its systems froze mid-command. It hung motionless for 7 seconds, then turned itself around, powered down, and drifted. No one had issued the order. The ship's logs were corrupted. The crew were later found unresponsive, still alive, eyes wide open. Command issued a full system diagnostic across the fleet. 26 ships failed to respond. Then 37 more. The anomaly spread in silence. There were no explosions. No alarms. And then, the fleet began receiving internal messages, originating from their own vessels. Each message was just one word. Observed. No coordinates. No identification. No encryption layer. But every ship received one. Even the ones isolated in deep patrol. The Empire had faced resistance before. They had endured insurrections, sabotage, even weapons they didn't understand. But they had never faced a species that simply watched them come, and smiled. They weren't waiting for war. They were waiting for the moment the Empire got close enough. And the Empire, convinced of their dominance, had brought themselves right into the kill zone. The order didn't come from a president, general, or council. It came from a consensus. 7 individuals, scattered across the planet, each given a portion of the key. None of them had spoken to each other since the protocol was encoded. They didn't need to. Their agreement was built into the system. The final vote wasn't cast in discussion. It was cast in action. The final confirmation traveled less than 0.3 seconds through hardened fiber links, reaching a chamber 10 kilometers beneath Antarctica. There, in an isolated control station, a lone operator confirmed biometric authentication. A prompt appeared. Protocol Sigma, level absolute. He didn't hesitate. He pressed one key. No alerts triggered. No launches initiated. Nothing visible moved. Yet every sensor on the Empire's fleet simultaneously recorded a total data collapse. Not interference. Not jamming. Just absence. Star charts went blank. Distance readings flickered, then showed impossible values. Gravimetric sensors detected nothing. It was as if the surrounding space had folded in on itself. The Empire's ships began to vanish, not explode, not disintegrate. They simply stopped existing. One by one. No heat signatures. No time lag. No debris. Communications from the rear vessels cut off mid-sentence. One captain's last words were, "I think we're gone." All 973 ships ceased transmission in under 1.2 seconds. Across the Empire's galactic net, stations logged mass fleet loss without cause. Initial reports suggested a system-wide failure. But telemetry proved otherwise. There had been no malfunction. The vessels were operational, powered, combat-ready. And then, in perfect sequence, every signature ended. Recovery teams were launched. Nothing was found. Not a shard of metal. Not a trace of radiation. Even the interstellar path where the fleet had traveled now read differently, like a wound that had healed without a scar. Back on Earth, the system logged. Sigma complete. The operator stood, left the room, and the lights powered down. No further action was needed. In secure bunkers worldwide, military AI nodes ran simulations. All returned the same result: 0% survival for the invading force. Confidence margin, 100%. No broadcast followed. No warning was issued. No declaration of victory. Humanity didn't need to announce what had happened. The absence spoke louder. Meanwhile, within Empire intelligence circles, panic took root. Emergency councils debated the possibilities: weaponization of a singularity, spatial compression, dark tech interference. No theory explained the lack of thermal output, absence of reaction, or silence from surviving personnel. There were no survivors because there were no remains. Every known physical trace had been erased from standard dimensions. A classified Empire lab attempted to recreate the event using simulations. Every model collapsed. The math didn't hold. One analyst concluded, "This wasn't a weapon. It was a statement." The protocol was never named in public. It had no press coverage. No whistleblower ever revealed it. Sigma existed in the realm of contingency. The last line, theorized decades earlier when humanity accepted a truth they had never wanted to admit: if contact ever turned hostile, the response had to be absolute. The architects of Sigma had long passed. The ones who pressed it didn't fully understand its function, only its necessity. Earth's greatest minds had poured their lives into technologies not designed to fight, but to remove the option of war entirely. It had no countermeasure because it operated outside retaliation. It didn't attack the ships. It removed their spatial relevance. They were where the universe no longer allowed mass. A concept even the Empire couldn't defend against. The beauty of Sigma was its simplicity. It didn't retaliate. It didn't escalate. It didn't send a message. It eliminated the premise of conflict. And once executed, it deleted itself. Even Earth couldn't run it twice without rebuilding it from scratch. But they wouldn't need to. Because the message, though unspoken, was universally understood now: Earth didn't threaten. Earth ended. Those in the Empire who considered vengeance now feared proximity. Their maps were redrawn. Sol system marked as null space. A dead zone, not because life had ceased, but because nothing they sent would ever return. Humanity didn't celebrate. No parades. No headlines. They moved forward. Built new stations. Recalibrated satellites. Filed the incident as resolved. But in every command bunker, beneath every layer of stone and steel, there remained the space where Protocol Sigma once lived. Empty now. And watched. In the hours that followed, the Empire's outer systems lit up with confusion. Fleet control stations, stretched across 5 sectors, reported total blackout from the Sol Task Force. At first, command assumed sabotage. Communications officers were reprimanded, diagnostic teams deployed. Then came the data: 973 ships marked terminated. Not destroyed, terminated. The word carried implications that no one could explain. No alerts had been received. No combat logs transmitted. No emergency beacons. The entire armada had been severed from reality without so much as a final report. Surveillance probes dispatched to the Sol systems sent back distorted readings. Most failed to return. The few that did showed empty space where thousands of tons of Imperial technology should have been. The Council convened in secrecy. Ministers demanded answers. Scientists offered speculation: wormholes, black hole events, quantum field inversion. None matched the symptoms. Intelligence operatives scoured their archives for known Earth capabilities. None of the available data supported such precision. Nothing on file explained total annihilation without trace, signal, or noise. Fear crept into the conversation. The possibility that humanity had developed a technology beyond comprehension shifted the narrative. What was once viewed as an insignificant, isolated species had now demonstrated the ability to erase without conflict. Not win, erase. And that changed everything. Political factions divided. One group pushed for immediate retaliation, arguing humanity couldn't be allowed to possess such unchecked power. Another urged containment, warning that provocation might trigger a second demonstration. A silent minority said nothing, quietly marking Seoul as off-limits for all future operations. The Empire's allies were less diplomatic. Dozens of minor species pulled their embassies from imperial space. Some declared neutrality overnight. Trade routes that once relied on Empire protection now diverted toward independent hubs. Whispers of rebellion resurfaced in border worlds where imperial garrisons were suddenly seen as fallible. All because of one vanished fleet. Galactic news streams speculated wildly. Journalists ran simulations showing possible Earth weapons, most bordering on fantasy. Others interviewed xenologists who now labeled humans as post-threshold, a species that had crossed into technological singularity, capable of choosing when and how to interact with reality. None of those theories were correct, but they all shared one conclusion: Earth was not to be provoked again. Within days, a formal transmission was received from Earth. It consisted of a single sentence, repeated in every known galactic language. This was your first and final mistake. No further context. No demands. No claim to territory or resources. Just a reminder. The message rippled across communication networks with terrifying clarity. Empires had risen and fallen with longer proclamations. Here, one sentence had redefined galactic balance. Diplomatic envoys flooded Earth's proximity, requesting dialogue. None were acknowledged. Earth responded with silence, not out of hostility, but because nothing needed clarification. Alien academies began restructuring their military doctrines to include a new term: human protocol. It was taught not as a tactic, but as a warning, an example of restraint so complete, its activation meant extinction. Cultural analysts coined phrases like deterrent elegance and absolute negation, trying to explain why a species known for chaos had shown the most surgical act of violence in known history. Some races began worshipping humanity. Others initiated covert research into dimensional shielding, trying desperately to understand what they didn't see. Still, nothing surfaced. Humanity shared nothing. Earth resumed its projects. No broadcasts, no claims, no boasts. To the galaxy, this silence was not peace. It was judgment. A fringe cult formed around the idea that humans were no longer bound by linear time. That they had glimpsed outcomes and simply removed the inconvenient ones. They preached that the vanished fleet wasn't destroyed, it had been rerouted to a timeline where it never mattered. Mainstream voices dismissed this. But no one challenged it. Across the galactic web, ships entering the Sol system were quietly rerouted. Old exploration routes were redrawn. Trade lanes bypassed Earth by entire light years. The gap wasn't maintained by blockades. It was maintained by fear. No war was declared. No reparations demanded. No retaliation attempted. Because somewhere deep in the collective memory of every civilization that witnessed the aftermath, one understanding took root: humanity did not posture, threaten, or negotiate under fire. They endured the declaration of war. Then they pressed a button. And the Empire ceased to exist. Time moved on. Earth didn't dwell. No memorials were built. No speeches were made. The event that had sent shockwaves across the galaxy was treated by humanity as resolved protocol. Mars stations resumed mining. Lunar observatories recalibrated. Engineers finalized plans for a Europa terraforming grid. Not once did anyone mention the vanished fleet. There was no need. The Empire, stripped of its illusion of invincibility, retreated inward. Its fleets withdrew from contested zones. Its influence fractured in the outer systems. Dozens of worlds at once ruled began ignoring imperial mandates, emboldened not by their own strength but by the certainty that the Empire could no longer enforce anything. No military response followed. In the quiet sectors beyond known empires, a xenohistorian compiled records of the incident. Not from survivors, there were none, but from intercepted transmissions, recovered logs, and fragmented intelligence reports. He labeled it the Quiet War. A conflict without combat, casualties, or resistance. Only consequence. The documentation ran 12 volumes. The final entry was a single line. The humans said nothing. That was enough. Rumors persisted that humanity had developed several other protocols. Theories ranged from star core manipulation to timeline splicing. Earth never confirmed any of it. Speculation only deepened the myth. The galaxy stopped asking what humans could do. They started wondering what they would choose not to. Governments that once viewed Earth as primitive now issued private directives to avoid any engagement without prior clearance. Treaties were updated. Threat assessments rewritten. Human neutrality became a strategic priority, not because humans demanded it, but because nobody dared provoke change. Earth never claimed territory. They didn't ask for tribute. They offered no trade deal in return for sparing the Empire. No fleets moved beyond the asteroid belt. Humanity's only act after the incident was quiet observation. This restraint disturbed observers more than aggression ever would have. On Earth, the story was already fading. Children learned about the Empire the way ancient cultures once spoke of extinct predators, fascinating but irrelevant. Humanity's focus returned to expansion, science, art, and solving problems that had nothing to do with conquest. Technological progress accelerated. Quantum fabrication became commonplace. Bioengineering leapt forward. Deep ocean cities were completed. Off-world habitats grew self-sufficient. Earth's priorities remained internal, their external posture unchanged, silent, stable, unmoved. Galactic think tanks released annual threat matrices. Earth remained Category 0, undefined potential, infinite threat if provoked, otherwise passive. No military simulations successfully modeled a survivable conflict against humanity. The only strategy offered was avoidance. Some species began mimicking human behavior. Not their technology, which remained sealed behind encrypted infrastructure, but their strategic ambiguity. Entire civilizations adopted the practice of silent deterrence, attempting to replicate what Earth had demonstrated. None succeeded. Silence without weight was ignored. Only Earth's quiet carried consequence. Others tried direct contact under different pretenses: philosophical exchange, cultural diplomacy, knowledge trade. All requests were acknowledged, none accepted. Earth did not engage because it didn't have to. It never explained itself, and that became its final statement. One ambassador, speaking anonymously, said it best. They don't posture because they don't care if you believe them. They don't retaliate because they don't negotiate threats. They have no interest in conquest because they've already mastered consequence. Eventually, the galaxy adjusted. Routes realigned. Empires recalculated their boundaries. Earth remained still, not by limitation but by decision. What it had demonstrated was not supremacy of firepower, but supremacy of control. It had chosen a single act, executed it flawlessly, then returned to normalcy without acknowledgement. That decision lingered longer than any weapon. In time, the Empire's name faded. Its legacy became a footnote to the day the fleet disappeared. New powers rose, but all respected the silent line that circled Sol. Not a blockade. Not a warning. Just space where no one ventured. Beneath the ice of Europa, a new city powered up. On Titan, the first atmospheric processors activated. Humanity pushed outward, expanding steadily without fanfare. The stars held no threats now. Only time. In deep archive facilities beneath Earth's surface, a single protocol chamber remained, sealed, powered down, and empty. Its activation log contained one entry. One timestamp. No name. And under it, a message in plain text. No repeat required.